What is up, guys? It's the second day of the 30 days of dance, and I want to welcome you back to my 30 days of dance training. I'm really excited to have you guys here and can't wait to continue this journey together. We're still in the beginning of it, but it's going to be lit. So today we are elaborating a pose. That is the challenge for today. What does that mean? It means utilizing poses in my dance is very important because it helps me a lot with being clean, and it helps me to find new movement and always find new inspiration, right? If I just dance, it's very possible that I tend to fall into a certain movement pattern I've never been before. I will always do a movement that I've never done before because my body is just in a new place, right? So to me, that is really interesting and really useful. And before we start with the technical side, let's talk about a few of the benefits and the reasons to why I actually do this in my dance and why I practice this. So I already said it in the beginning, for me, using poses helps me to become more creative or to be more creative with my movement. But there's a lot of other things that it gives me, basically. So for me, if dance would be a language, right? Every step that we do is like a word, you could say, you know? And as I am, for instance, making a sentence, my movement and the different words that I try to make have to connect to make sure that the sentence also connects properly, right? If I start doing something here with my hands and then decide to go to the floor and do something with my feet, it's possible, but it could be very unconnected. I don't know if that's a word, but it can be very unconnected to each other, right? It's the same as if I would speak of a certain topic and then switch the topic completely to something else. Makes no sense. You lose interest in the conversation and you're not going to listen to me anymore. Same thing can happen with our movement. And so learning to utilize a pose and staying inside of a pose, to me, is as if I'm taking this topic and I surround my information around this topic as if I'm trying to tell you a little bit more about this topic. So if this would be my topic, I have my hand or my arm that I can talk about, right? I have my upper body that I can talk about. I have my knees that I can talk about. And I have my feet that I can talk about. And as I stay inside of that pose, talking a little bit more about what is possible from this pose, it is, you could say, familiar for other people because they understand where I'm coming from. As opposed to where if I would be here and decide to jump randomly, it's possible, but sometimes it could not make any sense, especially when it doesn't fit the music, right? However, if I would stay here, talk a little bit about what is happening here, and then boom, go down there, you see that connection from here to here makes a whole lot of sense. And so because of that, the story of my movement makes sense as well. Besides that, it is a really good way to become very creative or to practice your creativity, right? As I take a pose, I now have to figure out basically or make a solution to the position that I have and figure out how I can move and express myself inside of this. And with that, you start to create a lot of different type of vocabulary, right? If I use just my basics, things that I know, I can only go so far. The second I put a pose inside of my movement or put my body into a position, I have to now find a way to create vocabulary with that position, right? I have to figure out something that I can do with that position. And so the story or the words that I use with my movement become different than movement, right? It's really funny because as we try to open ourselves up and try to find new things to do with our dance, it's often limiting ourselves that helps us to expand into a new direction because we are forced to figure out another way to move as opposed to what we are used to. And to me, this is just for me personally, this is a very important thing. When it comes to dancing, I really enjoy being a part of the story that is being built, right? And if I would go on autopilot and just let myself go, sometimes it's possible that I get lost. I'm not gonna say get lost inside of the story, but that I lose the actual story of my movement and that there's no connectivity in what is happening and what I am doing. In order to do that, You want to be able to find the moments where you have to stick with something that you are doing a little bit longer as opposed to switching to something new. See it as this: if I'm gonna use certain type of tuts, right, and then from the tuts I'm going to do a certain groove, and then from that groove I wanna do groundwork, but I all wanna do it at the same time, it's super, super messy, you know? And being able to take a pose, and as I move, say, okay, now I'm gonna stop, and I'm gonna stay here, and I'm going to use this pose to move around with, helps me to really take a moment to dissect where I am. And actually, it makes it a lot easier to freestyle. You know, finding something new to do the whole time, whew, that's pretty difficult. But taking what you already have, as opposed to searching for something new, can sometimes just make it a lot easier and more fun for you to be a part of it and express the moment. Okay, so yeah, that's kind of it. But to me, are the benefits of practicing poses in your dance. Besides that, one last thing, to me also poses help you to clean yourself, your movement up, and figure out a certain shape of your body that fits you. So for instance, for me, my body often moves in diagonal lines. That's what I like. So if my leg is straight here, I move to that side, and I bend to that side, or I bend back. And I like to build a lot of diagonal lines in my movement. That, you could say, that is my style. I don't really consider to have a style, but if there would be something that I often do, it is creating diagonal lines in my movement. And other people could make very big poses because that is what they feel. That's the style of movement that they like. Sometimes some people want to stay small. And moving in positions can help you to figure out what your posture of movement or posture of your body could be, and what is kind of comfortable or interesting to you. See it like this: if a whole lot of pictures put after each other, and when you this whole stroke of film, and I change one picture inside of that, the movie will change. If I take one position in my dance, boom, something different, my whole dance will then respond differently and change. And so with that, I can always be creative and find something new. It's also just a lot of fun, okay? So there is a few ways to dissect a position and use it properly for your dance. Or maybe not properly, but use it. I use it in 3 different ways, basically, okay? Number 1, when I have a position, let's say I'm here, boom. The first thing I do is I don't focus on trying to move too much, move a lot. I just ask myself, okay, let's draw inside of the lines, and what lines or what patterns or movement, what options do I have? I can straighten my arm, bring it closer to me. I can bend my elbow or move my elbows upside down, up and down, upside down, sure. The other one as well. I have my hands, I have my fingers. I have my feet, I have my knees, my hips, my chest, right? And so I kind of see it as having a dot, boop, on a paper, and then I draw around that dot. I try to make a lot of different circles around the dot, but everything is around that dot. This is my dot, boom, and now I draw around that dot and search where my body can be inside of this dot, right? So you're not gonna stick to the pose, you're gonna play around the pose and make a few little options as if you're making different poses inside of the same pose to play around and see what is possible. And with that, you become a little bit more awareness of where your body is at, so that you can use it and you can eventually not think about this anymore, but just feel that your body is in a place where you think it's interesting, right? And then use that place to make a little bit more information or just make another type of dance or whatever. So, bang, we're in a position. The first thing we do and we learn is to play around, right? Like I said, hands, we have our wrists, we have our elbows, our shoulders, our chest, our hips, we have our knees, we have our legs, we have our lower body, and you just draw around that pose, okay? That's the first way of basically utilizing or elaborating inside of a pose, inside of a position. The second option is to not move inside of the position, but move the position around the floor. So now instead of staying in one place and moving this around or moving myself around inside of the position, I take the position that I have and I search how I can transition or move around the floor with this position and bring it into different places, right? So right now I'm using mainly my arms as I would call it fixed point, but let's just say as the part that stands still in my position, and I search for different ways I can move inside of the position without changing a certain part of it. As the part that stands still in my dissecting, it almost has the same feel to it, whereas when I was inside of this position, sometimes I tried round, okay? Right? So that it's not limited to one leg and one place, and I can really play around with the position a little bit more, like such. Okay? So I'm taking a position, I already said it, but I'll say it again, and move it around the floor. Search many different ways. How can this position be used in my body? Can I be on the, like, stay very tensed up and move this position tensed, which is of course possible. I mean, everything is okay if you feel like it, but it's all about playing around with how you use where your body is at and not too much focusing on like having a static, this is all it is, this is the rule. That's the second way you can go about it and elaborate a pose or position. The third way is dissecting. So dissecting, it almost has the same feel to it, whereas when I was inside of this position, so I'm just my arms staying inside of it, right? My legs staying inside of that position. But now the trick is that you only use the position as inspiration for movement. So you're allowed to move outside of the pose. So let's say this is the pose. These arms are the inspiration, and I dissect what I could do with it. I have down and I have up. So if I put it here, I got something. Here, I got something. Bang, this one is back. Bang, that one is back. You see? So I don't really have to completely stick to what is happening here. I can just use it as inspiration to create movement. So maybe I can create stuff right here, right? I can start turning this around and playing around with that idea of turning stuff the whole time. Or, there goes my hat. See, for instance, that is one way. I can boom, 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 use it as a pendulum or something to come up and down and so on. Same for the legs. My legs are crossed, so I can play around with different ways to cross my legs, you know? And of course, there's a lot of variations. I can play with one hand and one leg. I make a lot of different options with that. So it's all about your imagination and just feeling free to use what you have in order to get something new. So of course, you're not gonna completely move away from it. That's not how it works, because then you'll lose the exercise. But you're going to try to be inspired by what you have and kind of manipulate the upper body. I was putting my hands on my head. That was the position that I wanted to take, and to play around the position as if I'm drawing around it, right? Making circles around that position and seeing what I can do with that. And I was dissecting it by boom, 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 making something new out of that position. I got into a position that I got into a position with my position that I really liked. And I was down here. I don't know if I can do it on a hard floor though. I was doing it somewhere else. I was right here. And to me, this was really interesting because, like I said, it's like having a position, boom, 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 inside of a position that you can play around with. And so being really creative and really searching for the edge is just in dance, but you'll not do what you feel, which will make you feel like you're failing at expressing yourself, probably, right? But you'll always find something new, and you'll always renew yourself as opposed to being stuck. Because honestly, making mistakes and doing something different than you have done before is way better than being stagnant and staying stuck inside of the same place over and over again, right? Staying stuck, you cannot grow from that. But making mistakes, there's so many lessons inside of that. Combine them together to see what happens to your movement. And I promise you that if you do it properly and you really take the time to be a part of this moment, instead of just doing it without really thinking, feel, right? Be a part of what's happening. Circles, okay, boom, I twist, comes down, comes up. Like, feel what is happening, be a part of that journey of movement. And that's going to eventually help you to expand into something that maybe you haven't seen before, or that is just really fun to experience yourself, because that's what it is about in the end. We're dancing with you to help you alongside of your practice a little bit more and give you a more complete training, because you're not really going to get something from it yourself. And that's actually why the 30 Days of Dance was created, okay? But now we're breaking it down into different sections. And the sections are, number one, you're going to take, without music, you're going to take a position, whatever you want, I don't care, whatever the position is, right? You're going to take a position and you're going to draw around it. I already explained it. We take the position and you draw and make different lines around the position that you have. And just search, feel, okay? Search for different options. Express. Don't just draw without thinking or feeling, both, without thinking or feeling, but make sure that you are aware of it, of what is happening, right? I am aware that my ankle, that my foot is moving. I'm aware that my knee is moving, my elbow, my shoulder. I'm aware of it, and express it. So try to, feel as if you're playing around with the different textures. Textures meaning something like slow, fast, weak, strong, and so on. Different, you really are aware of what's happening. Then without music, you're going to take the other one, the other challenge, which I already explained, or the other option of elaborating positions. And that is to take a certain position and now play around the position, not only around the position, but use the body parts that you have inside of it and see what you can do, right? So we have, for instance, the arms. I'm allowed to play around with the arms and create different options with my arms based on that, based on where they begin at, right? If it begins here, I can start playing around with maybe pulling something, pushing it, bringing it up, bringing it down, rotating it up, boom, because this was my inspiration, That's number two. And then for number three, it's exactly the same what I said in the explanation. We take the pose, but now we move the pose around the floor, okay? So if I have, for instance, my hand right here, I'm going to play around with my levels, my directions, and search with how I can use this pose in different ways and basically change the positioning of the body without truly changing the pose that the body has, okay? And of course, it could be anything. Let me do the other leg before I hurt myself, right? It could be anything you want, okay? Do that without music first so that you really have that conversation with just the body, okay? Because if you start playing music, it can happen that you lose track of the story of movement that you are having and focus so much on trying to adapt something to the music that you become a little lackluster in keeping a certain idea or concept alive, basically. And after that, if you've done those 3 rounds, then you do them all 3 separate with the music, okay? You can choose whatever song you want. We have a playlist. Don't cheat. Dance the full certain barriers. It's going to help you to overcome certain, and I decide to go and dig somewhere else. And I'm like, no, you know what? That's the place. That's where I want to dig. Or, nah, it's probably this one. What's going to happen is that I'm never actually going to find a treasure because none of these holes are going to be deep enough, right? Same for movement, same for dance. You're going to have to move for a longer period of time, dig a little deeper, and that's how you get to a certain point. That's how you get past a certain point, okay? It doesn't matter if you've practiced dance or freestyle for 2 years, 1 year, or your whole life. It's a fact that if you do something for a longer period of time, your body will adapt to it. So make sure that you just stick to the full songs because it's going to help you a little bit more. Okay, all three, and you put them together, right? So I draw around a pose that I have. I then use the pose as inspiration for my movements. And eventually, I, of course, use the pose and move the pose around into the space that I have, up, down, and so on. And you play with those different options and see what happens. I believe if you do it properly, it's going to be a lot of fun, okay? That is it for today. I hope it helps you guys out. I hope you have fun with it. I hope to see your challenges on Instagram as well, of course. And I can't wait to see you guys in the next one. Thank you guys. Peace.